Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our program. I'm Mary Beth Weisberg, the Director of Membership and Partnership, and I want to just welcome you. Before we get started, just a few notes. This program is being recorded and it's going to be posted on our YouTube channel. We'll send a link to that after the program, after we get the video uploaded. As we kick off today, please feel free to introduce yourselves with your name and your company in the chat and chat with one another. If you have questions that you would like answered by the panelists at the end of the panel discussion, please use the Q&A function and we will answer as many of your questions as possible during the program. I'm going to hand it over now to Steve Kramer, our President and CEO.
Great. Thank you, Mary Beth. Welcome, everybody. So glad you joined us today for this important topic. As you know, public safety is always a key issue for our downtown, and for always we have a strong plan, and this year is no exception. Law enforcement is always a key part of that, but so are other strategies, and we're really going to spend a lot of our time today on some of the outreach and other activities that complement law enforcement to really work to make sure our downtown is safe and secure for everyone who lives and works and visits downtown Minneapolis. Before we get to that program, though, I just want to highlight a couple of other things that are coming up next week. We'll actually be together for a tour of the Dayton's project, which I know we're all excited about. And I can tell you, it just looks fabulous in there when you get behind the construction wall. So there's an opportunity to do that next Thursday. We do have space limitations, though, because of social distancing. So if you're interested, please visit our website and sign up and get registered so we can put you in a slot. Then on the next day, Friday, the 21st of May, a new 612, a coalition that we and many other business organizations and labor groups and community groups are a part of, will be hosting a program on the reanimation of the downtown economy as part of kind of an overall discussion of issues that are really critical to Minneapolis this year in particular, given that it's an election year coming up in November. So join us for that as well. We've got some great panelists for that event. And just continue to look for more information about our programming at mplsdowntown.com because we have programming throughout the year, and we really value the chance to connect with people in this way on important and interesting topics related to our downtown environment. So with that, I think my job next is to introduce the panelists for today with our focus on public safety, and we've got a great group. Let me just read the names and then we'll turn to Shane Zahn, our safety director, for an overview. But we also have with us James Seals, who is a social worker at Hennepin County, and you'll hear more about James's role, and his colleague, Cynthia Arkema O'Hara, who is program manager, criminal justice behavioral health initiatives at Hennepin County. Joe Kreisman, who's our social impact manager at the Downtown Improvement District. Jen White, community and interagency engagement manager at the City of Minneapolis for the Office of Violence Prevention, and for many years a staff member in the mayor's office, and before that in Council President Barb Johnson's office, so a really experienced City Hall hand. And then last but not least, Shane Zahn, who needs no introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway. He's our safety initiatives director at the Minneapolis Downtown Improvement District. So with that, I think my job is to hand it off to you, Shane, for a quick overview, and then we'll get to the other panelists.
Good afternoon, everybody. Shane Zahn, Director of Safety Initiatives for the Minneapolis Downtown Improvement District. Believe it or not, I'm not going to talk a lot. I really am excited to hear from our panelists, but I do want to talk a couple bullet points. DID has invested over $3.5 million into public safety efforts this year. We're going to come on strong. We have since starting a lot of our initiatives as of January. We're about 60% of all our initiatives we're starting up earlier this year. And some big investments this year is in the social impact initiatives. So I'm really excited to introduce Joe Kreisman, who's our social impact manager, to talk a little bit about his role and some of the other speakers that we have on new initiatives that we're doing for downtown safety to really take holistic approaches to different lenses of how we're addressing safety for our downtown. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and then I'm going to come back on. You don't get rid of me that easy. I'm going to come back on after the speakers to talk a little bit about what our summer safety strategies are coming into June 1st. So Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Shane. So My name is Joe Carson. I'm the new social impact manager with Minneapolis DI Downtown Improvement District, as Shane was saying. It's a new role. It's just over a year now. So it's been very exciting to be in this role and be downtown, although it has been obviously a very interesting time to start a job for a year with everything that's been going on. So some of the things we've been doing have been focused around the pandemic. Early on last year, we started a mask drive and collected 3,000 masks from public donations, as well as some partners, and distributed them out to a lot of the low-income affordable housing in downtown. There was a big need early on in May of folks who were still looking for masks, didn't have access to them. And we've continued that drive collection, including putting out a more stationary collection bin on 10th and 3rd. And have distributed close to 10,000 masks between multiple collections, big donations, and our livability team members and outreach ambassadors have been continuing to hand out masks to people in person all the time out on the streets to make sure that everyone feels safe as individuals and everyone who's walking around downtown. And so our livability team has sort of really, I know it's tried to this point, but continue to sort of go out and do the work and adapt and pivot to the changing situation and making sure that they're always engaging with folks downtown. We've got a robust team of 4 these days who are out doing outreach all throughout the day. We've got a morning, evening shift, and they're making a lot of really meaningful connections to folks and building those relationships and really trying to do that person-centered work downtown with folks so that we know who people are. We have relationships with them. We know can sort of help connect them with resources, find more needs, and do a lot more with bringing and centering the humanity that everyone has, and that making sure that everyone feels welcome downtown, regardless their income, their housing status. And the other sort of big work we've been doing around that for outreach with all of our partners is we've recently purchased a mobile coordination support center, which is a van sort of mobile hub that we're going to be able to deploy to various parts of downtown and be a forward base for outreach partners. We know that we have so many great people many who are on this call today, who help with our outreach and expand the reach, the work that we can do, and all the folks that we can connect with in the diverse populations downtown. And we've been asking them to do that really far from where their home bases are, where their work is, at a time when everyone has sort of reasonable concerns about who's inside buildings, what's open, what's not, ever-changing rules. And so we've got this mobile coordination support center, which you'll see out and around downtown. It's out right now on Marquette and 3rd and branded with DID. And it'll be a hub for our outreach workers to come and connect with each other, make plans, take a break, have lunch, take a Zoom call, and be able to connect with each other and charge their phones and be a forward base and a respite spot for a lot of our outreach workers who are out. And we hope that as we refine that use, that we can continue to expand that, and it can be a hub for resources. We've got a lot of opportunity to make that sort of a mobile activation site. It's been splendidly designed, custom built for us with awnings and windows and lights and sound and all sorts of fun things we think we'll be able to engage the broader community in meaningful ways as we go along here. And the other really big change that we've done this last year, new addition to our programming, is James Seals, who was introduced earlier as a Hennepin County social worker. So DID and Hennepin County have entered into a 2-year agreement to really try and expand what outreach looks like and what the livability teams can do downtown. So we want to make sure that we can always do sort of upstream holistic help and work with folks, and making sure that there's more that we could do than just give people resources. We can take them to those resources. And so one of the things we've done is we've purchased a van. And so we have a van that James is driving, and he can do transports and take folks to resources, whether that's housing, job applications, withdrawal management, mental health services, whatever that person might be looking for, and do that in a much more dignified and welcoming way than what we've often had in the past of just sort of giving someone a bus token and sending them on their way, or having to call a police squad car. So we're hoping that all of these things will start coming together and be great resources. And so James has been on the role for the last 2 months, and it's been just fascinating to watch how that has already started to change things. So we're super excited to have him on board, and I'll let James talk more about what he does every day.
Good morning, everyone. James Seals. I'm currently in the mobile utilization trailer, parked out here on 9th and Marquette, enjoying the beautiful sunshine. So it's a brand new position for me that I'm really excited about, because assisting those that are less fortunate or in need of services is a passion of mine. I'm really excited about the possibilities. So some of the things I've been doing. So just yesterday, for instance, Steve mentioned the Dayton's store. So I met a gentleman, I ran across a gentleman who had a few libations yesterday afternoon. He was stretched out on the sidewalk or in the doorway of the new Dayton's building, and I was able to make contact with him and speak with him and offer him a ride home. Unfortunately, he was going to a shelter in St. Paul, and I couldn't take him home, but I was able to take him to the light rail, buy him a ticket, and send him on his way with a smile. He was really excited about the assistance. And so that's part of what I do, giving help to those that are in need. This is a very exciting time for me in my life, and there's a lot of people in need, especially on Nicollet Mall and in the area of downtown Minneapolis. A lot of homeless people, just a lot of people that are in need of services, and that don't need contact with a police officer. So that's one of the things that I'm really excited about, and Joe and Shane are excited about, because we can assist these people and we don't have to put them in the back of a squad car, or we don't have to put them in the back of an ambulance. So I can provide services and offer assistance, or even just a hello or word of encouragement. So there's great possibilities in this position, and I'm excited about this new role and part of being with the downtown district and the downtown community of Minneapolis. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all. I'm on the mall. Just as Steve was taking his walk yesterday, we ran into each other down by Westminster. So I look forward to seeing you all as well. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, James. And Dana, I'm going to jump back in here if you can put me back on the screen. Thank you. I think I may have neglected to introduce earlier our next panelist, and if I did, I apologize. It's been one of those mornings for me. But John Turnipseed is the interim executive director of Mad Dads and also executive vice president at Urban Ventures, one of our really great, impactful nonprofits in South Minneapolis. So, John, you're up next. So we welcome your remarks.
All right. Oh, there I go. Turn that on. Well, I've been around Mad Dads since the beginning. Urban Ventures helped start Mad Dads, and this summer we're seeing a lot of things that are sort of new to us. We're more concentrated in one area or two or three areas. We used to just be all over the city, and that's by choice. We would rather have an impact in one area than to be in 10 areas. Because we get to know the people around us. We are at Nicollet Mall and the Salvation Army and the House of Charity. And recently our workers, they've been experiencing a lot of people intoxicated. That's been a lot of the situations down there. And but they've been handling them well and stuff. We feel comfortable down there. The kids are getting to know us more, and we need to just get these kids to resources instead of just hanging out downtown. So when I say interim president, I'm sort of just saying if this hat fits me, if that makes any sense. Like I said, I've been a Mad Dads, I've been out on street patrol, and we're just excited to be working, especially in downtown. That's a sweet spot for us. So thank you.
Great, thanks, John. And probably have some questions for you as we go along here. So our next panelist, as I mentioned, is Jen White, who has a long career at City Hall, as I mentioned, and now is with the Office of Violence Prevention as their Community and Interagency Engagement Manager. So Jen, why don't you fill us in on what OVP is doing these days?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning still. It's still good morning. So just want to share a couple updates about some of the work happening in the Office of Violence Prevention this year. Last year, in summer of 2020, some funding was allocated for us to operationalize a violence prevention model that included building teams of violence interrupters that would do kind of outreach in the community. And this year we were allocated ongoing funding in the 2021 budget. So we have assembled teams to do the longer term, broader implementation of this model. This is really another initiative that complements some of our existing programming around violence prevention. And this is really focused on individuals and groups who are able to work within community to identify potential violence and mitigate that through intervention, conflict mediation, de-escalation, etc. We did do a competitive RFP process this year, and we selected 6 teams that will be working in areas across our city. There is a specific team that has been identified that will continue to work downtown as well. Currently, our teams are involved in some training, and those teams we expect will be on the streets after all of their training is completed by Cure Violence Global around mid-June. So we will be seeing these folks all over the city this summer, and in particular downtown. The initiative does complement some of our existing efforts that some of you may have heard of, our group violence intervention model that focuses on group and gang involved violence, as well as Next Step, which is our hospital-based intervention model, and that works at HCMC and North Memorial. And this year we have also been working to expand that to Abbott, just so we are getting coverage across the city. We also had our Violence Prevention Fund RFP that we put out earlier this year. We received several proposals for that, and we are happy to announce that Hennepin Theater Trust will be one of the recipients of funding for that. And the Violence Prevention Fund really looks to support kind of very community level efforts around violence prevention. So those are just two of our initiatives that you can expect to see downtown this year. And I'm happy to hang around for any additional questions.
Great, thanks so much, Jen. I'm sure there will be some. And Shane, you're gonna kind of paint the bigger picture, right, about everything that's going on in context with all this great outreach work. And Shane is frozen and uncharacteristically silent. So give it a second here. Back with us, Shane. Okay, well, I will attempt to fill in while we hopefully get Shane back online here. As I mentioned, our program every year is a combination of strategies. Certainly the outreach work that everyone talked about is critically important, but it's meshed and integrated with law enforcement as well, both our partners at the Minneapolis Police Department and coming soon, kind of the traditional Joint Beats partnership with MPD, Metro Transit, Police Department, and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. And I'm hoping Shane will be back on to talk about that in a little more detail. All of that work. Shane, you back? Back, Shane? Still can't hear you. There we go. So I was pinch hitting for you just a bit and just talked a little bit about Joint Beats, but didn't really go into any detail. So I think you can kind of take it wherever you want to go, whatever you're going to say should be fine.
Okay. Am I getting an echo here? Because I'm on my cell phone too. So.
Nope, you're all good, Shane.
You're good.
Okay. First of all, sorry about that. I had an internet dead zone here in the precinct. So I want to talk about really our safety plan for this year is in 5 major categories. The first category is communications. We are really working hard towards our enhanced communication efforts with DID. One is the RadioLink program. We have over 65 buildings currently on the RadioLink program, doing 3 roll calls a day, but interconnecting with security in our safety communications center. The second communication initiative that we have is our safety and outreach WhatsApp group. These are for property managers that are downtown in our outreach teams to be connected with our safety communication center. So that thread is up to about 135 users on the WhatsApp and outreach thread. And then the last thing that we've done is our bi-weekly Friday virtual safety calls. And you're getting updates from Inspector Peterson, Sheriff Hutchinson, Chief Eddie Frizzell, Chief Ojado from Park Police, the City Attorney's Office, and OEM, and myself. Our next virtual safety call is this Friday at 11 a.m., but they're every other Friday, and we've been doing those for the last 7 months to get you updates in real-time information as we get it. So really encourage those that that participate, continue to do that, and those that may be interested, let me know. Our second category is our presence and response. This includes law enforcement. You probably have seen some extra presence along Nicollet from 8th to 9th, and that's Inspector Peterson putting some overtime budget to increase the presence. But we also have our ambassadors out on patrol from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then on Sundays from 6 to 5. And then our coordinated outreach patrols that are happening with Mad Dad's outreach Monday through Friday from 11 to 6 p.m. Our DID livability team out there from 6 a.m. to 8. Our Youth Link team that DID contracts with is Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays from 1 to 5. And then James Roll, he's out there Monday through Friday. And if you haven't seen James driving around in the white van or walking around, you haven't been outside because he's everywhere. So James has been doing a great job out there. And I also want to thank both Sasha and Jen. OVP has been out there as well with the violence interrupters. And I'll give you one clutch hit this weekend with the dial back for bars opening. Inspector Peterson was really trying to pull resources together for late night safety presence. And both Sasha and Jen put a team together and had OVP violence interrupters out there Friday and Saturday. So really appreciate the city and public health and OVP coming together on such short notice and getting downtown resources when we really needed it. So thank you. On top of that, we are going to be launching our Joint Beats initiative June 1st. This is enhanced presence downtown for both law enforcement. This is where Metro Transit Police, Hennepin County Sheriff's Department, and Minneapolis Police Department come together for extra presence downtown. And that'll happen Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Starting June 1st and all the way through September 3rd, just the day before Labor Day. DID also increases our ambassador presence by extending our hours from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. and increased ambassador presence as well. Youth Coordinating Board will start in June as well to add on to our outreach patrols. And then also DID has contacted with MPD to provide extra police presence with police reserves Monday through Friday from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Downtown. So that's a contract that we do with the city and MPD for extra presence throughout the summer. The other work that we do as well is advocacy work on safety. I mean, there's a lot of work being done. We have a DOJ visit as well, and some of the other enhanced advocacy we do with other bids throughout the US. So I'm on calls monthly with other bids as well, learning what they're doing and sharing what we're doing. And then lastly, the activation, which I'm really excited about. Farmers market, makers market, all coming back to downtown to really bring the vibrancy back that we need, not just the safety plans, but it's really a coordinated and holistic approach to our efforts. And as you noticed, in the last couple of weeks, things have been very coming back, whether it's twins or workers. So I think that's another thing that I'd like to share with you as well. And I just got a text from Inspector Peterson, for those that haven't heard, that the trial for the other 3 officers have been pushed back to March 7th, not August time. So that is something new that we just learned. So we're getting a little bit of a break there. So that's all I have. Just maybe turn it over to any questions. Really appreciate everybody's partnership and effort going into this year for safety efforts.
Great. Thanks, Shane, and thanks to all the panelists. I'll moderate here a little bit. Mary Beth put it in the chat. If you have a question, please use the Q&A function, and Mary Beth, you'll tee those up for us if they come along. But maybe I'll kick it off with, first of all, thanks for updating everybody, Shane, on that. I just saw that news myself. I think that decision was made in light of the Department of Justice bringing civil rights cases against those 3 officers plus Derek Chauvin. So we'll see how that all plays out here in the coming days. Overall, and Shane, maybe I'll start with you and then see if any of the other panelists want to comment. I mean, overall, we know that statistically crime is down in downtown. I think the last numbers I saw for the Part 1 crimes and more serious offenses year to date compared to the previous 4-year average is about 21%. Property crimes a little less than 40%. So overall crime is down. We still, though, obviously have this perception of safety that we struggle with. And that's a big factor in kind of the back to office planning that many companies are doing. You and I are on many calls with companies kind of talking about the safety issue. So how do you think about kind of the reality of the situation? And there is a reality to it, but then this larger perception issue that we have to deal with. And why don't you start off, and then we'll see if any of the other panelists want to comment on that same topic.
Yeah, I think perception has probably been our biggest challenge, Steve. How people are getting information and how quickly they're getting it, whether it's real information or perceived information. But we also have a lot of work in front of us. You know, this police department is down significant numbers right now. There's a lot of reform happening, which is positive. But I think also COVID has hit us a lot too. So there's a lot of things that are standing out more. When you have a workforce that's less than 30% in your downtown and not a lot of activities, things are standing out more. But that's also given us some time to make sure downtown is getting cleaner, getting better, fine tuning our safety initiatives. So I think, you know, as we look at coming into this year, really it's going to be all hands on deck to build confidence back to employees, to residents, to visitors, that we are a class act place to be. So, you know, really look forward to continuing our efforts on all types of sorts of safety discussions and initiatives that we continue to work on.
Any other of the panelists want to comment on that kind of topic? Jen, you had to deal with that all the time, right, in the mayor's office?
Yes, I was gonna chime in a little bit here. And I think, you know, as Shane mentioned, that perception is really kind of what gets us, and that your perception is your reality. So how you're perceiving and what you're experiencing really does matter. And I think one of the kind of key messages that we've been you know, kind of centering in the Office of Violence Prevention is really that it does take all of us to prevent violence. So I feel strongly that everyone has a role to play, and whether that is, you know, through the various initiatives that the DID has done so well over the years, you know, safety through environmental design, how are we activating spaces like the Hennepin Theater Trust, the 5 to 10 on Hennepin, and having those outreach workers and just really having, you know, folks around and feeling that, you know, that kind of vitality and vibrance of downtown that we all know and love. But really, you know, how are we sharing information and making sure that, we're all contributing to the ecosystem of safety.
John, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah. I was just, thinking, there was a couple of things I just wanted to comment on real quick. The trial being moved back is not a relief to me. What it is, it's right now we were like waiting. Everybody's waiting for something to happen, and so we're going to be in this wait mode a little longer now and stuff, and that concerns me, because anything in between that sort of sparks another fire. So I wish they hadn't did that, but wiser people than me figured all that out. Being downtown is one of the most important areas of our city, and it's sometimes overlooked and neglected because, everybody thinks downtown has all this money, they can do this and everybody's rich and all that kind of stuff. But, the homeless environment down there is really tragically underserved, there needs to be more resources out there. And I believe that the violence people, I'm gonna call us, we don't talk to one another. At least I'm not included in conversations, except Shane calls me a lot, and that's how I get my stuff. But we got 10, I just heard that we have more violence interrupters. And I don't know what to do with that, because, it's like we've been around 22 years. So there needs to be a communication vehicle that all of us, if we're all working for the same goal, then all of us need to be in the conversation. And I don't know how we make that happen.
Great. No, good point. We certainly want to have that happen through the coordination function that Joe mentioned earlier, but we've got to work at that for sure.
Yeah.
I think, Mary Beth, we had a couple of questions come in. So why don't you tee those up for us? And then I saw one on chat too.
We do, yeah. So we have a question from Max Erickson. He's asking, what progress has been made on addressing the following guiding principles for police reform and public safety from June 2020? The first, clear accountability for oversight of police and public safety. The second, MPD reform and reinvention is needed. And 5, I think this is supposed to be 3, build broad consensus on the path to a safer city for everyone.
I can jump in here, Steve. I know if you haven't had a chance, Chief Arredondo just released reform from 2017 to present. So you really can see a lot of the things that have happened. He timelined it as well, but there's still a lot of work to be done too. So, but if you haven't had an opportunity, I think Steve has a document of that was shared by the chief and also went out to the Star Tribune. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but a lot of work that has been done too.
And I would just add to that, and again, welcome any other comments. I mean, we are in the middle of a big conversation in our community about the right approach to public safety, and it hasn't always, in my mind, been satisfactory, but it is a conversation that's happening, and it will ultimately culminate almost certainly in kind of voters deciding whether to change our charter, which could send us one direction or another. So, let's all pay attention and let's all find ways to kind of express our point of view. And Jen might be able to fill us in on what some of those opportunities are, not necessarily related to the charter change, but just generally the planning that's going on around the approach to public safety in our city. But it is a live conversation, and the decisions that are made in these coming months will really be consequential for our city, and we all need to have our voices heard. Jen, anything more you can say about the planning efforts that are going on?
So there's kind of a lot, obviously, and things moving in different areas, but I do know that the chief and the mayor have been working on additional policy changes, directives, and things like that should be rolling out kind of maybe on a more continuous basis. And also with the transforming community safety work, we really have focused on 3 priority areas of that work and communicating that out around, violence prevention, alternative response to 911 calls. We'll be seeing the mental health pilot roll out later this summer as well. And then that third priority area is around policy change within the police department. But a lot of that work is happening, and it's difficult to talk about because they have to go through the whole kind of conference process and get everything signed off on before they're able to announce that. But I know that they are working on additional policies and changes.
Thanks. What else do you have, Mary Beth?
Great. Actually, a couple of people have asked this question. Connor and Pam have asked about the DID escorts for employees. And they're wondering if they can have more information about that and how that works, and if it's still an option.
It is still an option. You can call the DID Safety Communications Center at 612-332-1111. Our escort times can happen anywhere between Mondays and Saturdays, 6 a.m. to about 7:30 p.m. They're off the streets by 8. So just call and they can provide an escort. It's pretty simple. We prefer if you're with other employees, if you have groups, that'd be helpful too. So you can imagine if we were getting 20 different calls from.
Dreaded internet instability has struck again, it would appear. Joe, anything that you could add to finish that from an ambassador availability standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think Shane covered most of it. I think the only other thing I would add is we're continuing to do our summer ramp up. So we'll have more ambassador availability, and we'll continue to review ambassador hours as we go along through the everyone coming back, businesses coming back downtown. And I think the main thing is, right, it's one of the many services that the Safety Communication Center provides based on demand. And as people call, we can continue to adapt to where folks are calling from and how to make sure ambassadors can get to escorts as quick as possible. And as Shane was saying, larger groups means that ambassadors can respond to more places than trying to do one group of, couple groups of 5 is a lot easier than 20 groups of 1.
Great, thanks. Anything else?
Yes, so this is a question for James. Somebody would like to know, is the van primarily intended to support individuals with transportation, or are there additional resources that people can access through it?
Well, as far as I know, it's for transporting various people to different locations and providing services. But I think Joe may be able to elaborate a little bit more on that question. Joe, would you please?
Yeah, yep. So our primary focus is transportation. We wanted to expand the opportunity and encourage a large part, sort of expand the opportunity and the speed at which we can respond to calls for services for transportation. So a lot of that happens through the Safety Communication Center number. We encourage everyone to have that. And if there's someone who you think would benefit from a wellness check from a livability team member, from Mad Dads or James or anyone else, that's the best resource to go through. And so that they'll then route out and encourage and pass that information along, same as 911 would, through our outreach groups. And in large part, the van will be sort of only consent travels. So James has been working with folks to take folks to places that they want to go. If they need to go somewhere for an appointment, if they want to go to withdrawal management, that's a great opportunity. And James and I have been working close with folks in the community, in large part because we want to make sure that everyone views that this van, this service, and the work that James is doing is a welcomed, sort of dignified aspect, because we know that a lot of folks in the homeless community have been hesitant themselves to call for emergency services or call for assistance for their friends who they know might be in need of assistance or more care. But because one of our only responses in the past has been police, that hasn't always been an interaction that everyone wants to have. So James is working close to make sure that that's something that everyone is always aware of and welcome to, and making sure that that's dignified. And so the plan right now is to really limit that to transportation, because we want to make sure that that part's getting done well. We have hopes, same with the Mobile Coordination Support Center that James is in right now, that we can expand the efforts that those are to include more things, do more outreach, specifically the opportunities for medical services in partnership with Healthcare for the Homeless and others, that there are places that we can store equipment that nurses may need and do some on the street medical attention.
Great. And Joe, while I have you, could you repeat the DID escort phone number and I'll pop it into chat?
Yeah, so the Safety Communications Center number that can be used for escorts, for calling, connecting if you want Mad Dads or James or Livability or anyone to show up is 612-332-1111.
And Mary Beth, while you're doing that, I'll throw out another question that I saw in the chat, and it's around measurement. How are we measuring the impact of this work? I know, Joe, you've got some criteria in the contract with Hennepin County. Maybe you want to comment on that. And then Shane, anything that you'd like to say about crime stats and other metrics that we're using to kind of keep track of how this is all working?
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways we're trying to measure and learn how we go through this. Obviously, response to calls, call response time, the services or transportations that that James is able to provide, and track those contacts, track the frequency at which we're engaging with the same individuals or locations, and how that changes over time. And with one of the, I think, the really big things for the work for us that in this partnership with Hennepin County and James's role is that he'll be able to connect with a lot more upstream solutions and county and state databases and resources and case management. And so we hope to really wrap that around and do that holistic approach for individuals who are looking for that kind of service. And so James will be able to track the progress for folks to connect with additional services, to find housing, to get into shelter. And we'll be able to keep track of those things in a much more meaningful way than we have in the past, where it's often been sort of anecdotal or just going off of 911 calls for services. And so we're really trying to bolster and expand all the ways we can track that. And as we go through, figure out what are the meaningful metrics that we're finding, where else do we want to look for growth.
Shane, what would you add to that?
Yeah, for crime statistics, we look at really two categories: violent crime and then property crime. So part one, violent crime right now for First Precinct is down 21.03% year to date, but we have to compare that to a 4-year average because of COVID. Usually year over year now is really skewed. And then same with property crime. We're using a 4-year average right now for First Precinct, which is down about 37.71 year to date as a 4-year average. Now, I want to take that lightly when I share statistics like that, because we also have been dialed back on a lot of things. So a good example with the bars reopening to 2 a.m. A lot of our violent crime, especially downtown, has happened after midnight to 4, and we saw a little spike last week in robberies between those hours. So those are things that we're keeping a close eye on and building safety plans around as we see trends. And then some of the other things that are harder to measure is livability and perception. So those are things that we have to do a better job on. I know DID does perception surveys and different things like that. So those are equally as important when we see comments or areas of concern. What are we doing for a multifaceted approach to get it better? So great.
Good. And then Mary Beth, I'll go ahead and ask another question here, which I think is a really good one. And that is, all of this work we're talking about is somewhat by its nature responsive to things that are happening. What about kind of going upstream? And so maybe John, I'll ask you to talk about some of the work of Urban Ventures to reach people and help them find their way in life. And similarly for Office of Violence Prevention, I know you have some of that work going on as well. But John, why don't you talk about upstream?
Yeah, what we found out over our 22 years of working with people, you just can't move them around. You can do that, they'll just keep coming back. But if you can take them to a place that they need to be, like we can get a person in treatment in 2 hours. Okay, so when you when we're coming to people, we actually have solutions for them. And, you know, sometimes a guy just wants to have visitation with his children. We help with that. You know, we have about 10, 12 partnerships so that we can, you know, talk to people about where they're at and where they want to go. And we try to get people out of their situation by bringing them to our office. And when you get them to the office, they're out of their environment and they are able to think better. And so, and we have connections with people like Amicus and that helps people coming out of jail and things of that nature. So then when we see the person again, they're more pliable to us telling them, you know, you can't do that here. So I just think we all need to have resources, actual resources that work. What I mean by that, you can point somebody to somewhere that might not like who they are or whatever and treat them bad. And that's not a good resource. So just concentrated resources. You got to be able to get people from A to B. Otherwise, you're just the police. I'm not just saying nothing bad about the police. Otherwise, it's just policing. This is community policing where we're helping people. So we need to have a unified resource list that everybody knows where we can get people, because that's how you're going to get people off the streets. That's how you're going to, you know, keep downtown safe. You got to, you know, so we all have to talk together to see what works and what doesn't work.
Great. Jen, what's OVP looking at in that sort of upstream framework?
Sure, yeah, so some of the kind of further upstream, more preventative type initiatives that we use are centered around youth. So we've got a program that reaches youth on sports teams in Minneapolis public high schools. We've got another initiative called Inspiring Youth, which is really an intervention type of service. So we're meeting youth really where they're at and then providing services depending on what their needs are. Our Inspiring Youth program consistently has a waiting list, and we partner with the schools on that as well. So really, how are we able to, you know, kind of intervene and try to help some of our young people early on so they don't continue on that path. And another philosophy that we have in the OVP, we really do see ourselves as having an open door. So maybe folks, you know, when they come and experience some of our services might not be ready at a particular time, but they are able to come back. And we see that as kind of a familial type of a relationship where we don't close the door on folks with whatever their needs are, and we do welcome them back. So GVI is a great example of that, our group violence intervention strategy. We saw a lot of our men coming back in 2020 and into this year as well, who were previous clients and who maybe didn't stick with it, but the impacts of COVID and a lot of other things, we just saw a lot of them coming back and asking to re-engage, and we certainly want to make sure that we are offering those opportunities.
Great, thanks. Mary Beth, I think we have a couple more in the Q&A.
We do, and you know, just noting that we have about 10 minutes left, so we'll get to as many questions that are here live in the broadcast. But if we don't get to your question, we'll definitely get it answered offline and send you information. For instance, somebody would like the repeat on the statistics of crime reduction and to know if it's from 2020 to 2021 and what are the stats compared to 2019. I think we can probably provide more information in writing on that one in a follow-up. Somebody's also asking about the Skyway Safety Plan. That's the question.
I'll take that. That's a difficult question because most of our skyways are privately owned and managed. With that said, doesn't mean that we don't have outreach going out there like the Livability team or Mad Dads. But we really do need help from property managers and properties which do a fairly good job. One thing Downtown Council has done is post the Skyway hours. So you know what the up-to-date Skyway hours are, and then continue to work with our businesses that are connected to Skyways for really that collaborative approach. As I said before, over 65 of the buildings are on the common radio link, security radio link channel back to the Safety Communications Center. Most of those buildings are connected to Skyways, a good majority are. The WhatsApp group is another way that they're communicating through our Safety Communications Center. But sideway safety is a priority for us because we know it's a major thoroughfare through downtown. But it is a little bit more difficult than public space that we manage with DID.
Great, thanks. All right, there's a couple of questions that I really want to get to, but what is specifically being done regarding all the carjackings taking place within parking ramps? They're noting that these are impacting employees not wanting to come back downtown.
Yeah, we're not having a lot of carjackings downtown. A lot of thefts with catalytic converters or just things being left out in the vehicles. That doesn't describe other areas like 3rd Precinct or 4th Precinct that are seeing more of the carjackings themselves. But I can tell you from the reports that, out of auto thefts, this week, just 4 out of the 7, the keys were left in the vehicles. And same with the theft from motor vehicles, a lot of stuff was left in plain sight. So we really have been trying to message, Renee Allen has been trying to message, lock things up, don't keep them in plain view. We're also really encouraging people not to leave their car running, even though their key fob is there. If they walk away from their car, it can still be taken. So we're trying to educate the public as much as we can because a lot of these things are preventable. And with ramps that are experiencing problems, matter of fact, Inspector Peterson and Renee Allen are walking out to a ramp today to talk to them a little bit about what they can do to improve on safety and security. So we are monitoring the specific ramps when we see an uptick in incidents and contacting the ramp through the police department or the crime prevention specialist. But a lot of these crimes that we've seen downtown are preventable. It's just really trying to lock things up that are valuable. And 2, not leave your car running or leave your fob in the key. And trust me, the inspector, every week, if you get an opportunity to go on the Friday meetings, he brings this up on the virtual safety calls that we have with properties downtown as well.
The one thing I'd follow up and add to Shane there is that we always encourage folks to call 911 and report those, because if we don't have record of incidents, then as Shane was saying, the inspector doesn't know where to put resources, where to have further conversations with ramps. So we always encourage folks to call because then it gives us in the best position to address it.
Great, thank you. And I think this will be a great question to wrap up with. How can residents and neighborhood organizations best support the negative public safety perceptions of downtown? With remote work being a reality for many downtown employers, moving forward, what are your thoughts on what the future of downtown might look like?
Well, I can start with that one. And I want to also do a credit where credit is due comment here. Our partnership with Hennepin County is also supported generously by the Downtown Minneapolis Neighborhood Association. So already we have that kind of connection with one of our really important neighborhood groups. We've talked about it a couple of times. I think a lot of the recovery of downtown is going to be driven by confidence in a couple of areas. One, public health confidence, which has been lacking for much of the last 14 months, but is really picking up steam here as the vaccination program moves forward and more people are feeling comfortable in that regard. And companies and buildings have made accommodations to be a safe workplace from a public health standpoint. And then the other area is the topic we've been talking about, kind of build confidence around public safety, acknowledge the reality of the issues that we're all working on, but also combat a little bit the perception that tends to outstrip the reality by a fair amount. And I think a lot of that is just good communication and what people's actual experiences are when they come downtown. One of the more positive things that I've heard in the last couple of months is as the Twins have brought fans back to Target Field, their opening day was April 10th, they've been surveying fans, and off the charts, folks are feeling comfortable and good and safe coming to downtown and coming to a ball game at Target Field. And we'll be tracking that kind of information as well, back to the metrics question, through our communication plan. We'll be doing pulse surveys all through the summer into the fall. So we'll be able to see how we're doing on that building confidence around this issue. And I think ultimately that's what we have to focus on. But welcome other people's comments and then we'll wrap up.
I think Stevie wrapped it up nice. The other thing I definitely think you can help on is just sharing the resources that are down here, like our ambassador program and our safety communications center. I mean, the bright yellow shirts are out there for a reason, and we're extending our hours as of June 1st to 11 p.m. From 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. And it's a valuable resource for downtown. Our outreach efforts, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the efforts that are coming from multiple organizations and what they're doing on a holistic approach. And quite frankly, our first precinct, they are holding it together with the resources that they have the best they can, and they're out there every day, and they'll continue to be out there every day. So that needs to be shared. Your support from neighborhoods and residents are equally as important. You have voices as well. And then the last thing is, when things are being sent out, when we are seeing an uptick in like the auto thefts or the break-ins, to take those newsletters that Renee is sending out, get them out far and wide so others aren't victimized on a real preventable crime. And we really can have a great summer and then get out. I think that's the biggest thing too. Downtown has to be reanimated, and we have some great things happening downtown with Farmers Market, Makers Market, Twins games. So we have a lot of things coming our way that I'm really excited about. So we need people to come down and enjoy downtown to really bring it the safety and the vibrancy back.
And the answer to when is the farmers market scheduled to open? June 3rd. So circle that date.
Okay. I think that's a good place to wrap up. We do have a few questions that haven't been answered, but I've taken note of them, and we will answer them and follow up by email along with the link to the recording of the program. So I'd like to just thank everybody today for your participation, the panelists, the great questions that we were getting, very engaged audience here. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have further questions. I will pop my email address into the chat, and thanks again for participating. Have a great day.